Hello everyone, welcome to the eCommerce podcast. Today we're with Neel Arora, Global Head of eCommerce at Nestlé, brilliant headquarters in Barcelona. Neel, thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure.
Great. So today we're going to be talking about the global strategy of Nestlé eCommerce, and we're going to learn about your role, team structure, how the ongoing trends impacting your decision-making process. We're going to touch on some trendy topics. Are you ready?
Ready for it. Let's go.
Tell us about your role today and how does it feel to be head of eCommerce at a global level with a brilliant organization, Nestlé? What's on the horizon for your team?
So this role is an absolute privilege for me. The role has actually evolved. So we really started off doing a COE type of activity. So setting the ambition for the organization and then building strategies and capabilities to help the markets execute. But where we're shifting to now is much more a center of scale. And that means providing technologies and services to help the markets really execute.
It requires a teamwork, I believe, and I know you have a very diverse team structure. Can you tell us about the roles and different functions which is not other organizations familiar with? Do you have any exciting or eccentric roles that are still supporting Nestlé eCommerce initiatives?
Well, look, it's been said many times before, but e-commerce really is a team sport. And just this week, as you know, we've been having our strategy planning meeting. And in this meeting, we've had all of the functions from across the business. So we've had the e-commerce team, we've had people from sales and capability, supply chain, finance, marketing, and then a really big delegation from our IT teams, both on the software side, which we call MSC at Nestlé, and also the data analytics side.
Data is exciting to me because I told you about this yesterday. I had this transition in my career as I started from director of e-commerce roles, and then I started educating myself on data and analytics, and they saw that there's a need in the e-com initiatives and objectives set for the company, and I shifted on my roles. Do you see on your team people cross transitioning from different functions, different roles in their career progression?
I think really the nature of global or above market is evolving. And we were talking about this in our team, by the way, not just the e-commerce, but also the broader sales team, which I'm part of at Nestlé, and my colleagues in marketing. Really, there's a mixture of being functional experts in our domain, but also sometimes almost as product managers, if you know what I mean. So managing specific business capabilities with specific technologies and helping the markets roll out these technologies.
Yeah, when you say product manager, product owner, I remember my old days where I was building products with broader teams. It's a good role. It's a very exciting role, and I see more and more people will be taking these responsibilities coming from sales and marketing backgrounds, collaborating closely with the IT teams. And actually, it's a very, very driven, motivating role. But this is in the nitty-gritty part of things. And I just learned a new phrase today, how the sausage is made. So it's a really brilliant term, or looking under the hood. But let's elevate to 10,000 feet. I know you're driving a major initiatives around Nestlé strategy. And I was lucky enough, thanks for inviting me to the yesterday's workshop. I tried to contribute to the global initiatives and the vision of Nestlé. Tell us about the strategy framework you're implementing and how you're building the global e-com strategy within the organization today. And give us a couple of examples, what's cooking.
Sure, so it's Friday when we're recording this. We're just off the back of a massive week. We've had the entire global e-commerce leadership team, plus additional supporting functions here in Barcelona. And we've been planning our strategy. This is super complex at Nestlé because we're in multiple markets, more than 180 countries, multiple categories. And actually, building a strategy that works everywhere is really complicated. It starts with the ambition, and I've been working in this space for more than a dozen years now, but I'm still super excited. So between now and 2030 at Nestlé, we're going to double our e-commerce business, our digital commerce business. So, somewhere between 15 and 18 billion if we capture what we see as the full potential of the market, and also if we continue to win market share. So then building a strategy is really really complicated because not only have you got brands, countries and categories, but as you know, within this digital commerce world, you've got all of these sub-channels. So what we've been doing over the last couple of days with this cross-functional group is taking inspiration from inside of Nestlé,
right,
but also outside of Nestlé, where you played a role. And then my favorite bit about strategy building is making choices and deciding what are the key things that you're going to do. This is the hard bit, this is the uncomfortable bit. But if we can get these choices right, that's the bit where we can add most value and make the most difference.
And I'm looking forward to reading some of the publications or sharing that might come out of this meeting, where to play, how to win, or some other specific tactics.
I'll be keeping that to ourselves. That's
I know.
In the house of
I'll
Nestlé.
look for the public announcements on the website Nestlé domain. But I know there is also big initiatives. There's also big ambition, very aggressive projects. Would you like to discuss a couple of them in a broader sense as overarching topics, where you want to focus on in the next 5 years? What areas will help you accelerate?
Sure, but before we do that, Mert, I really want to say thanks to you actually, because we put a lot of thought into how we build the agenda for this really critical, important meeting that we have in our strategy planning process. And what we started with is we asked our zones and our globally managed businesses, what are their priorities? Then we built on that by undertaking a survey, and we partnered with DCG, who did some benchmarking for us, how we're doing looking versus the external environment and our peers in the industry. And then where you came in is you helped us basically show us with real stories about what the world's best were doing. And honestly, the feedback on your session was fantastic. So big thanks on behalf of myself from all the guys at Nestlé, because it was really a great session.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It was really synergetic, engaging audience, and I'm glad it resonated with what you guys built and planning to build going forward. I'm happy to learn and also contribute in my own capacity. Thank you very much. And by the way, let's shout out to the Declan from here. You mentioned DCG. I just ran him on the outside when we were getting into the building. He's a brilliant guy. And who else are you following? This is my curveball question. Who else are you following in terms of your ongoing learning? We'll come back to that in the team structure. Is there any publications, blogs, newsletters you're tracking for your ongoing development, personal level?
Yeah, so look, I think this is one of the most important things to stay up to date in this space, which is moving so quickly. So I split my activities between 3 things. So number 1, I go to key events in the industry. Number 2, I read a lot on LinkedIn, and there's many kind of LinkedIn famous people in our industry. Obviously, you're one of the OGs.
Thank you.
And then the other thing is I have a lot of conversations with other people who are doing my role one-to-one in non-competing peer industries. Because what I find is that there's always something that you can learn from your peers, and also you can share. So these are the 3 things that I spend a lot of my time. And also as a team, we spend a lot of time attending these external events and really investing to stay really up to date with the latest information.
And it was great to hear some of the feedback from the peers at yesterday's global workshop, as we're sharing some examples, as we're talking about developing trends. I was really happy to see that some of your team members came out and expressing that, oh, we're already working on this, we already built that. It was really encouraging and nice to see that, okay, the synergy is going in the same direction from multiple corporations. I'm switching gears, going back to the global workshop from yesterday. Is there a couple key learnings, key outcomes that you can share with us? What was the big initiatives that you are embarking on?
Yeah, so I'm still processing the information, if I'm honest.
Tons.
I mean, the first thing, honestly, is a real sense of pride. When we started the e-commerce acceleration initiative 3 years ago at Nestlé, we carried out some benchmarking, and we were in middle, but the lower middle, in terms of our digital competency. And this is something that we can't accept, and clearly is why we made this huge effort as an organization. What we see since then, a lot of progress has been made. And I really want to thank the thousands of people we've got working globally to make this happen. What we also see is on critical capabilities, we've got work to do versus the best in class. So now let me give you some specifics, which I guess is because you're a subject matter expert, you want to get into the details. So we've got some gaps on how we produce content at Nestlé. Right? So concretely, so we've just rolled out a global technology to help us measure with huge scale all of our execution. The tool is super powerful because it gives us really insights which my offline colleagues would love to have on every store, in every country, in every SKU, in every postcode. Actually, we're rolled out in 66 countries now, almost 400 retailers.
Amazing.
What we see though is we're already at world-class performance levels in some KPIs.
Right.
But when it comes to content, we've got a gap. Another area of focus, we've done loads of work on retail digital media. We've done work on investment guidelines, doing it in a way which makes sense. We've done work on doing it in a way which is compliant, of course, and how sales and marketing work together. And we've also done projects on ways of working and communications and so on. In all humility, some of it is not landing, right?
Okay.
So
yeah.
What we learned over the last couple of days is this is still a big pain point in the markets. So we've got, these kind of inputs that we have from people like yourself, from people like Declan. They help us pick which are the big battles that we need to focus on.
Right.
And then these become our global priorities. So it's been a tiring week, but also I'm super high after all the energy and engagement that we've had.
Can I drill down a couple of those specific topics, like digital shelf? Let's start with digital shelf, one of my passion areas. So you mentioned that content is one of the big challenges you want to tackle in the coming years. When you talk about digital content, are you talking about the existing content performance, or are you talking about content production, entire digital content supply chain? And for a brand portfolio like Nestlé, from a consumer point of view, it's always mesmerizing and attractive for us. But from your point of view, when you're behind the scenes, of course, things are different. How are you going to attack digital shelf challenge in the coming years? Where do you see the biggest improvement for Nestlé?
So first of all, this is definitely going to be one of, if not the biggest priority in the coming years. So if we just zoom out, and sorry, because I'm a big picture guy,
of course.
Just before we get into the details, if you think about the context of our industry, growth is what we all need.
Yes.
Right, and driving volume growth. And actually, we know the direct correlation between your content scores and your digital shelf performance and volume sales and market share gains. And there's many, many great studies in the industry which give us proof points, but also know, thanks to some of our data capabilities, we can start to model what these impacts are. The specific area that we need to work on is actually content completeness. And by that, I mean making sure that all of the fantastic content that our colleagues in marketing make actually reach the retailer shelves.
Right.
And this is super complicated.
It is. Very cumbersome, very fragmented.
Yeah, in some ways there is this intensification of the media landscape with a few big players dominating. But on the flip side, there's this fragmentation. We need to deliver content to more places, more retailers.
Right.
And they've got ever and ever more specific and customized needs.
True.
And on top of that, they're looking for deeper content. Right?
More engaging, more enhanced content.
More
Absolutely.
engaging, more in total number of assets, and refreshed more often.
True.
So you've got this multiplier effect in terms of the content that you need. So what we see as a source of competitive advantage, and there's some markets and some brands that are doing it absolutely brilliantly today in Nestlé, is actually getting this connection from our source of truth or from our marketing colleagues, from the dam out to customers as a critical capability that we're going to need to maintain competitive advantage.
And nowadays, there's another elephant in the room which impacts digital shelf performance drastically. One of the paid levers, retail digital media.
Yeah.
And how do you see the ongoing relationship with Nestlé brands and the retailers for retail media investments? And how are you going to measure the performance? Are you planning to make any improvements, bringing any tech solutions to the tech stack to improve the efficacy of measurement on retail media?
Yeah, look, so again, one of the big themes that came out of the workshop, I know this has been something which has been top of the pile in terms of the news in the industry in the last 3 years.
Right.
So firstly, in terms of people we had in the room, we had our colleague Vince, who looks after retail digital media in the global marketing team. He was in our workshop working with us, super important to us. On the flip side, the global marketing teams had their own meeting with a deep dive on retail digital media. And us from eCommerce and sales, we were also part of the same group. So this cross-fertilization is genuinely how I think we're going to make this a success in the industry. In terms of technologies, actually, we've started scaling up a couple of key partners, which we're testing at scale in different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are going to be looking at the results. And then the final bit, which we've got some work to do, is really on the optimization of the results.
Absolutely.
And how we connect the data from different sources to run more advanced analytics. So these are a couple of the key themes that came out of the last couple of days.
You mentioned really important teams bringing their synergies together: marketing, media and brand, and e-commerce and sales. And on your last part of your sentence, you mentioned data analytics.
Yeah.
So this requires a very fast, robust learning curve for all these team members, because all these functions are converging rapidly. And it requires different backgrounds, different technical skills. Suddenly, brand managers need to know what data analytics running behind their retail media platforms. Or suddenly, sales and commerce teams need to understand some machine learning models from the deep forecasts and production planning. And I know you're a big fan of on continuous learning and growth mindset of your team. I met some members of your team at the events and the company. They're all brilliant, very versatile people. How do you foster this growth mindset and ongoing learning skills in your team? How do you encourage them, motivate them for adapting new capabilities, new skill sets?
So this is a massive focus for Nestlé, specifically in e-commerce. Actually, I should give a shout out to a couple of colleagues. So James Godfrey, our global capability lead, and Álvaro Moria in my team. You met him yesterday. He's been leading the charge on capabilities for e-commerce. And actually, it's about not just capabilities, but also community. So because I think these two things go hand in hand. So to help build capabilities, of course, we've created playbooks. Of course, we've created webinars where we've had tens of thousands of people attending, and even online trainings. What we do to amplify that is basically apply some of our e-commerce and retail digital media mindset to the amplification of that.
Okay.
So we create an online community using some of our internal tools. We create competitions to share best practices, and we do a lot of broadcasting, right? Because the challenge that we all have is finding the time to learn.
Right.
So we need to get it up people's agenda, celebrate when it happens, and also give people a chance to shine when they're doing great work. So never have I thought about mandating learning.
Right.
You can do this,
of course, but it won't fly.
You can mandate stuff, and people will begrudgingly do it.
Right.
The idea, and you get a bump while it's mandated, and then it drops off when it isn't. What I really want people to do at Nestlé is to feel part of something, understand where we're going, and really enjoy this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we do a lot of work on creating really engaging short content, different styles, different formats to help us, and then we track the metrics, right? So coming back to more kind of the analytics mindset. So how many people are visiting our training site? How many hours of training are they doing? What's the average dwell time? Same on our internal social media. We're using Workplace by Meta at the moment. How many engagements are we getting? What content are they engaging with? We track it all. We have a dashboard, and then we create content to keep our community engaged. And that's how we're trying to drive this change.
What are the top 2 topics this audience are enrolling and spending time the most?
Our capabilities are built around our strategic framework that we have at Nestlé. And it will be the obvious stuff. Digital shelf, retail digital media, also how we interact with our customers.
Not so much love for analytics, my personal passion.
This is the thing. I know analytics is your personal passion. I think this is one of the key takeaways. What we're starting to see now as we build the use cases is this positive correlation between markets who are advanced on data analytics with that growth over performance.
Okay.
So it's about remembering that it's foundational with everything, but also if you don't do it, there's a price to pay.
True.
So, but I think again, that's something we need to keep drumming home.
So now I want you to bring out your crystal ball. Let's look at the horizon together, and where do you see the biggest impact coming from in these trending topics? Because I'm surprised. This is one of the episodes we didn't touch on Gen AI at all.
Yeah.
And we touched upon some more substanceful and tangible topics, which is a good thing. But I'm sure there are some trendy, hot objects on the horizon you pay attention to, you're monitoring. Where do you see the impact coming in the next few years? What areas you're monitoring?
So there's a couple of different ways to answer that. So the first thing is coming back to our growth ambition. Yeah. Where is the growth going to come from?
Exactly.
So we have this basket of new channels, which we call emerging channels at Nestlé. Yep. So marketplaces, social commerce, last mile delivery, and part of that is also eB2B. That's already a really big part of our total e-commerce net sales, or our digital commerce net sales. In order for us to get to double our business, we're going to need to have a CAGR in double digits between now and the end of the decade. These emerging channels are going to grow twice that's our forecast. So we're talking 20 plus something, compounded over 6 years. So wow. Really big numbers.
This is massive.
The second one is the geographies. And actually we do see a different shape in terms of the geographies which are going to grow, and how what we were talking about yesterday is how we focus our resources and our time and our efforts between the geographies. But we definitely see that Latin America and Asia for us, Asia Pacific, is going to be really accelerated growth along with what we call the MENA region. But then how it cuts between geography and channel, that's critical work that the local markets need to do. Yeah. But the where to play decision is there. You gave me the chance to talk about Gen AI. I haven't spoken about it yet. I know it's hot news everywhere in every industry. Look, the obvious area is content. And we've done some really successful pilots. What we're trying to work out now is where and how to scale the technology. So specifically, what parts of the value chain can it augment? Of course, it's going to be all of them. But then where is it best placed? Who's best placed to build it? What are the partners that we need to deal with? We've got some really good hypotheses, which we're going to be piloting in the next phase next year. But again, this is going to be a big priority. And if I may,
of course,
the big challenge is we need to do all this stuff at the same time. So where to play, which channels, how you build the strategies needs to be done. Capabilities always on. The technology part, this product manager part of our role, which is completely incremental to what we were doing 3 years ago when we started this team, that's how we really do this stuff at scale. And then Gen AI is augmentation of that, picking the key areas where we can make a difference, and then allocating resources between these 4 areas. That's how you build the strategy.
That's a perfect summary and encapsulation of an ongoing reality of digital commerce and the CPG. And really very basic question before I ask your closing remarks and some of the key highlights of the event yesterday again. Very quick question, because I know some global enterprises are launching initiatives around Gen AI, improving and impacting the business, etc. And some of them are preparing for the risks around the Gen AI. Is Gen AI technology overall is a risk and threat for some workforce, or is it an opportunity and lever for the global leadership that they can utilize and use it towards improving their performance?
No, look, it's got to be both, right? But if I can, how I'm thinking about it is as an opportunity, because I see more upside than I see downside. I guess I'm just a glass half full kind of person. In terms of the upside, and even if you think about something like content, an obvious application, one of the things I was talking about was the increased demands of content. It's what my colleagues in marketing call this multiplicity effect. You can definitely see how Gen AI can play a greater role, where actually what we'll be able to do is serve our consumers and our shoppers with more appropriate personalized content. So I think, content is going to be an arms race to really provide the best experiences of our brands, and those of us that are able to do it will be the ones that win in the future. In terms of the risks, it comes back to capabilities. If we don't reskill ourselves now, then we will be victims of this change. If we skill ourselves now, then we can ride the wave. Yes. So this is how I think about it.
Perfect. So as we approach to the end, I'm going to ask you about your closing remarks, whether some of the highlights from the last 2 days and takeaways, and whichever you'd like to finish our conversation today with the audience.
Sure. So as I said already, it's been an absolutely spectacular week. I just feel super lucky. I just feel super lucky to be at an organization like Nestlé, which I've been almost 10 years working now, to have this position and to be in a position where we're making these massive decisions. It's really an absolute privilege. And also, one of my passions is seeing people develop, and my takeaway and my feedback to the group was the quality of the conversations that we're having and the level of the problems that we're now trying to solve. So, our end-to-end product content management, the data that touches multiple functions, these are things that we're going to need to be successful. The role of all of sales and all of marketing in the future, these are now some of the kind of things that we're getting into. It's not our job to solve this, but these are the things we're going to need to do to enable the organization. So I'm on cloud 9 after last week. I need a good sleep and a good rest this weekend, but I'll be coming to work on Monday with bags of energy again.
That's super insightful. Thank you very much for all the insights. Thanks for sharing the experiences, and thanks for having me, for contributing to the workshop. It's a great privilege. And thanks for being on the eCommerce podcast, Neel. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We were with Neel Arora, Global Head of eCommerce at Nestlé in brilliant Barcelona offices. To stay ahead of the curve, continue connecting with us. Have a great day now.